Last week in the Craft with Dawn Lewis Facebook group, I went live and made this card with the sole goal of using up a bunch of leftover patterned paper. Today I'm going to recreate this card, which on the surface looks quite simple. It's not overly difficult to throw together this card. Add some paper strips, a sentiment, a feature image, some gems, and you've got a finished card. So this video is going to be less about the how I created it and more about sharing the 3 design tips I used to get this elegant finished look. These tips really do elevate your card making, taking a card from looking thrown together to put together, and I'm excited to share them with you. Let's get started. Design tip number 1, color choices. Paper pads and coordinating collections are one of my favorite things for card making because while the patterns may vary quite a lot, they are all designed around one color palette. So no matter how you combine them, they are going to look great. And while this may look like part of a coordinating collection, it is not. This is the Fabric Lover die and stencil set by Waffle Flower, released last year. And this paper pad is 11 years old. And I know this for a fact because I made a video on this very channel using these papers 11 years ago. So you may be wondering, Dawn, if they're not from a coordinating collection, why is it they match so well? What a great question. I'm so glad you asked. I used my ink pad swatches to choose colours that coordinate as closely as possible with every paper in this collection that were in my pile of leftovers. By gliding different pieces of the pattern paper over my ink pad swatch pages, I was able to identify 8 ink pads that would work beautifully with the core colour palette. As I was doing this exercise on a live stream, I asked if anyone else spotted a colour that I had missed, and someone suggested aged mahogany, which I had totally missed, bumping the collection up to 9 colours. Thank you, Anne. Well spotted. I wrote out a list and attached it to the paper pad, so now each time I make a project using these papers, I can simply refer to the list instead of matching colours again. I'll repeat the exercise and also add lists for pencils, watercolours, and Copics, so that I have coordinating colours in case I feel like colouring with a different medium. The ink pads were a great starting point though, as all of them are water-based or water-reactive, which means I can not only stamp and ink blend with them, I can also use them as watercolours for stamped images. But for this project, I'm blending them onto regular white cardstock using the coordinating colouring stencils that come with the set. Out of the 9 ink pads chosen, I'm only using 4, and that brings me to another fun fact about ink pads. You do not need many shades of the one colour. For the fabrics in this image, I'm picking up the base colour lightly and taking off excess by moving the blending tool around on the stencil before applying to the die cut with a very light hand. To apply the darker lines and the dots with the detail stencil, I'm using the same ink pad, but this time picking up more colour, working less onto the stencil and applying with a heavier hand. I refer to this technique as tone on tone, and it works really well with this paper pad because several of the papers also use this tone on tone technique. The keen observer has likely noticed that I've coloured the cat grey, yet I have not chosen grey as one of my 9 coordinating colours. Some images are going to call for a bonus colour, and when choosing those like the grey and the black, I will be looking for colours of a similar tone. In this case, the colours of this paper pad are a little muted, which means there's a little grey mixed in there. The first time I coloured this image, I used antique linen and basic brown to colour the cat. It coordinated, and I'm not saying that it looked bad, but by adding a bonus colour, in this case a nice neutral grey, it provided some relief from everything being too matchy-matchy. This leads me very nicely to design tip number 2, contrast. One of the reasons it took me 90 minutes to make this card on my live stream is because of the black cardstock. I had done such a good job colouring this featured die cut that when I lay it directly on top of the pattern papers, it just disappeared. Without a doubt, it looked better backed with black, and I spent a ridiculous amount of time trying to decide how best to utilise black for this card. In the end, I settled on a thin strip of black cardstock below the 5 strips of pattern paper. I'm no graphic designer, but I feel like the reason it works is because it balances with the small touches of black I used for the eyes and mouth on the cat and the fine border around the sentiment. Of course, I could have skipped the black entirely. No cardstock strip, stamp the sentiment in colour and leave the eyes and nose dark grey like the stripes, which would look like this. Sure, it's colourful and pretty, but there is nothing demanding the attention of my eyes, and they just wander off the edge of the card. Those small areas of black are not only grounding, they also make the colour really pop, and the white space gives the whole design room to breathe. Design tip number 3, rule of 3. I talk about the rule of 3 quite a lot. I use it as a bit of a game to help me get more use out of my supplies or make an informed decision about something that I'm looking at purchasing. In this case though, I'm referring to something different. Quite by accident, I seem to have picked up on the 3 layers of fabric below the cat and have used trios elsewhere in this card to mirror that. 3 types of patterned paper: plain, light pattern, bold pattern. 3 pops of black: die cut inlay, cardstock strip, sentiment. 3 featured colours: green, blue, pink. And 3 small gems under the sentiment, which I coloured with a Copic marker to coordinate with the papers. Lastly, the placement of the paper strips, coloured die cut and sentiment is sort of a visual triangle, like this. Adding things in threes just works, and I don't know why, but adding things in odd numbers seems to be visually appealing. Obviously, I have a lot of papers left in this paper pad, but I also have a lot of leftover paper bits from the project 11 years ago and the project I've made today. And I have a lot of ideas for them. And if you wonder, Dawn, why don't you just throw them away? I mean, seriously, throw away leftovers in this economy? I don't think so. While I'm looking at my calendar, I would love to give a special shout out to Vicky Taylor for her awesome support through Buy Me a Coffee. I appreciate you so much. Thanks, Vicky. So I'm thinking it would be fun to showcase more ways to use pattern paper on cards in a live here on YouTube. You will find a live scheduled on my channel for Saturday, the 21st of March 2026 at 11 a.m. That is Sydney time, Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. So check an online time converter for your time zone, and if you're able, I would love to see you there. And we will see how many cards I can get out of this. I hope you enjoyed this video and found these ideas helpful in your quest to use up your patterned paper leftovers. I can't wait to see you when I go live here on YouTube, or you can always join me in the Craft with Dawn Lewis Facebook group, where we talk a lot about using up our leftover craft supplies. Until then, happy crafting! And yes, of course, I coloured the cat to look like Evie. As you can see, she approves.